Yeah, I suspect if anyone has answers, it's someone on that plane. Most likely someone we found standing 100 yards away when it blew to bits.
What the heck really happened on Flight 828, and who is this shadowy figure? Let's dive into the first 2 episodes of Manifest right here on What Happened. Rise and shine on, you lovely people. Lisa here, and I am so excited to finally talk about fall TV being back and my most anticipated new show, Manifest. Now, I didn't have time to do a recap last week on the first episode, but I finally had time to see it, and I'm briefly going to go through both the first and second episodes. So if you've already seen episode 1, you don't want to hear me ramble about that, you can skip to episode 2 when I talk about that. I will put the time code on the screen and down in the description so you don't have to listen to that rambling. But all I gotta say is after these 2 episodes, I'm definitely invested in the mystery of this show. Is it something supernatural? Does it relate to something like a conspiracy? Is it something just totally crazy? What exactly is going on? Why is 828 so important? Who is this shadowy figure? What's the importance of Cal? So many questions, and the only thing I can think of to do right now is just dive into talking about episode 1. So, you know what? Let's go!
They've all been missing, presumed dead for 5.5 years.
Alright, let's break down episode 1. So we are introduced to siblings Ben and Michaela Stone. Ben is married to Grace and they have a set of twins, Olive and Cal. Cal has leukemia and Ben spends the majority of his time caught up with Cal's illness, which kind of causes him to ignore the other members of the family. Michaela is a cop who's definitely been having a rough time as she's been put on desk duty and calls herself a screw-up. She's also been involved in some kind of accident that killed somebody, which she has a lot of guilt over, but she's been deemed innocent. She's also been stringing along her boyfriend Jared, who has proposed. She hasn't given him an answer, even though everyone in her family is telling her she should. They're all on vacation with Ben and Michaela's parents, coming back from Montego Bay. Now, when their flight gets overbooked, Michaela, Ben, and Cal eagerly volunteer to take the later flight because, yeah, who doesn't want $400 for just taking a flight maybe an hour later? Well, it turns out maybe they shouldn't have taken this flight. Or maybe they should have. On the flight, they end up hitting this really big rough patch of turbulence, and that's just what everyone thinks it is, turbulence. Well, it's not any kind of turbulence, like you, me being up in the air. We felt some turbulence, I'm sure, on some kind of flight, but this is some turbulence I do not want to ever feel. It kind of makes me not want to get on a plane anytime soon. Well, thankfully, they get through this rough patch and they end up landing, and, well, what they learn is quite a surprise. Flight 828 has been missing for 5 years. Yeah, around 5.5 years. So basically, Ben and Michaela's mom in this time period has passed away. Olive is now, what, like 15 and a half, 16? She is a teenager, so she looks a lot older. She looks her age, whereas Cal and everybody on the plane, they haven't aged a day, so Cal is still like a little 10, 11-year-old. Like, how crazy is that? Now, obviously, with about 5 years passing and thinking that your loved one is, dead, Grace has pretty much moved on to someone else, thinking that, like I said, her husband is dead, but we don't actually get to know who that is, and she kind of is very much keeping this a secret for now. However, Olive also seems to know, and she's trying to tell Grace she really needs to figure this out and just come clean, or figure it out and come clean. Now, Jared, Michaela's, boyfriend that she thought she wasn't sure she was gonna marry or not, he has actually married Michaela's best friend, Lourdes, and has become lead detective. Now, there's this investigation underway on the plane to figure out just what the heck happened, but we also see that Michaela and eventually Ben start to hear these voices, not just any voices, but their own voices telling them things, and they get more intense, causing them some pain in their heads. The first time Michaela hears her own voice when it's saying the words slower, it's because she's on a bus and she yells for the bus driver to slow down, and he narrowly avoids hitting a kid that runs into the street. Michaela and Ben then both end up passing by the same kind of scrapyard, workshop, whatever it is, and they hear the words "set them free," and they think this means the dogs that are behind the fence. So late at night, they come back and they set those dogs free. But it turns out it wasn't about setting the dogs free. Well, not totally, because setting the dogs free did help them out a lot. Because you see, what's going on here is that Jared lead detective is working on an abduction case of 2 young girls, and they haven't had any leads. Well, when Jared and Michaela go to return these dogs to this guy that works at this scrapyard or lives there or whatever, Michaela is still hearing these words, "set them free." So she's like, well, it can't be about the dogs. And the voice gets louder. She follows the voice and ends up at this, shipping container. She breaks the lock, and what do you know? The 2 young abducted girls are inside of that shipping container, and, the guy at the scrapyard gets arrested. So now Ben and Michaela are super confused about just what these voices are. What do they mean? Where they came from? Why them? They don't know if any of the other passengers hear them, but they finally learn they are not alone. A number of survivors from the flight also managed to hear something because they all gather at the hangar where their plane is being investigated, only to see it just blow up because someone or something apparently doesn't want to be found out. So what's causing all these voices and premonitions? Who or what blew up this plane, and why? Why are these people so connected? Whatever it is, it seems to have helped Michaela actually possibly get back on active duty thanks to solving this case. Also, when it comes to Cal, since we're 5 years in the future now, there is an experimental trial that has been having really good success rates at curing cancer and leukemia in kids. So the doctor ends up submitting Cal for this trial. However, the board actually doesn't want to approve him since his diagnosis was, 5.5 years ago, and he doesn't quite fit the trials that they've been having now. His diagnosis is kind of too old. Well, there is one person fighting for him to get into this trial, though. It is Dr. Sanvi, a young woman who just so happened to be responsible for the research making this cure, this treatment. She actually has a connection to young Cal. You see, she was also on flight 828, and she was working on her research and sending it in when the turbulence hit. Her laptop flew off and broke, so she thought all her research was lost, but it was actually sent just in time. Ben has also had a wake-up call and realizes that he's spent too much time focused on Cal, and he barely knows his own daughter Olive, who in the 5.5 years since they disappeared has had quite the tough time. And well, that pretty much wraps up the events of episode 1. One other thing though, which I can't not mention, is the number 828, which most likely will prove to be some kind of running thing throughout this entire season. The flight number was 828. Before Michaela and Ben and Cal boarded the flight, the last thing that their mom said to Michaela was a Bible verse about, all things working together for good, and the chapter and verse number of that Bible verse was 828. Also, the place where they set the dogs free and found the abducted girls, the address was 828. So what is that significance? I actually don't think we see it in episode 2, but I have a feeling it's gonna pop up a lot. So I think that pretty much wraps up episode 1. So let's go ahead and move on to episode 2 and see if we get any more answers or maybe put on the right path to figuring this stuff out.
My mom and dad, my sister.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Okay, so the theme of episode 2 is basically kind of letting go for a lot of the characters, and we also get the entrance of some kind of shadowy figure and our first big death of one of the passengers of 828. So there were 20 passengers from flight 828 who showed up and watched the plane explode, obviously including Ben and Michaela. And now the NSA and the government are super concerned about what's going on. They don't want any information out there. They want to question every of these 20 people to find out just why they all showed up. One of them has to be responsible, right? Well, all these passengers are being pretty quiet, not telling, the government, the investigators, anything. But they are kind of feeling it out with each other to see if they are feeling weird things, hearing voices, whatever, what brought them here. There's one man named Rad who keeps asking people for help, even asking Ben, but gets ignored. Well, instead of voices this time, Ben keeps hearing the same loud violin music over and over, and he can't figure out just what it is. Eventually, that leads him to, you guessed it, Rad, who is playing that song on the violin because he has also heard it. It turns out that Rad ended up leaving a son behind who was 13 5.5 years ago, and now he's 18 and in jail, and Rad wholeheartedly believes that his son is innocent. Now, Ben is reluctant to help, but after some convincing and hearing the music a few more times, he finally decides to help, pull some strings with the police department thanks to Michaela, and gets Rad in to talk to his son, Audio. Yeah, Audio and Rad. Very interesting names here. Turns out Audio works at a jewelry store, or he did before it was robbed. He was actually beat up, and when he woke up, everything was gone, and well, since there were no signs of forced entry and audio had a record, he's the one who got blamed. After visiting the jewelry store and getting more information about the crime, Rad is still convinced Audio is innocent, but no one else is believing this. Now, during all of this, young Cal has been complaining that he misses his old stuff, especially, his stuffed lizard or whatever, and his Lego sets. So, what is Grace doing? She's doing her best to try to replace that stuff, buying tons of Lego sets. Really cool ones, but to Cal, they're just not the same. He wants his old stuff back. And it's like, okay, kid, I get it. You want your familiar stuff, but you gotta realize it's been 5.5 years. Apparently that stuff is gone. They don't make it anymore. Do you realize how much money your parents are spending on all of these Lego sets? Because they bought him a ton. So let's hope they kept those receipts, man. Those are some good parents. Well, while Cal is missing the familiar, there might be a solution, and you can call it a twin thing, intuition, or maybe something miraculous. But Cal's twin Olive, she's the key here with this little part. While Grace chose to finally let go of Cal and Ben after the 2 years that had been missing, she packed up all their stuff, put it on the curb to basically throw it away and donate it. But Olive, she had this feeling and knew that Cal was alive. And when she told everybody, or even the therapist, her mom, no one believed her. But she believed it, so she ended up taking all those boxes, keeping them, and putting them in a storage unit, which just so happens to be the storage unit that belongs to this mystery man that Grace has moved on with, that she's been seeing, but she can't bring herself to tell Ben about, even with the urges of Olive and also Michaela, who overhears and figures it out. Unfortunately for Grace, before she can explain everything to Ben, he figures it out because he goes to the storage unit with Olive and he sees that there's scuba gear in this storage unit. He knows it doesn't belong to any of them, and he had just learned that Grace got a scar from scuba diving. But before he can really talk to Olive about any of this or really process what's going on, he's interrupted because he starts to hear that music in his head again. And it gets so bad, he gets the headache. This leads him to another storage unit in the same building where, winner winner, chicken dinner, the stolen stuff from the jewelry store and more is inside. And who's standing there with it? The jewelry store owner's own son. Yeah, how messed up is that? But, the good part of this, Audio is set free and father and son are reunited. Now, after this, Michaela tries to tell Ben this has to be something powerful, something bigger than them, and something that, even dare say miraculous. But Ben, being the kind of guy that's like, nope, mechanical, whatever, this has to have an explanation, just needs a little more research. It can't be God, it's gotta be something concrete. So yeah, we're gonna see these two differing on just what's going on. So after this, Cal does get his room back in order, and Ben does hint to Grace that he knows she met someone. And he understands it, but he kind of wants her to give him a try again, to remember her love for him. And you know what? Kind of seems like it works, at least for now. Michaela's big hurdle this episode is getting reinstated and finally talking things through with her best friend, or rather maybe former best friend, Lourdes. Now, after blowing Lourdes off at the police station when she wants to talk, Michaela's informed that if she wants to get back on the beat, she's got to pass all the regular tests and trials, but also get a psych evaluation since she has been through so much. Whether it was the 5 months with the accident before the plane or everything with this plane. She needs to get evaluated and she's not too happy about it. And in her first session, she doesn't actually open up. When it comes to that accident that's been mentioned in the first episode, we learned that Michaela had actually been drinking and driving when that fatal accident occurred and her friend was killed. And even though, she was exonerated for it, she still carries a lot of that guilt. Now, after talking to her former fiance and co-worker Jared, and looking at the Facebook memorial page Lourdes set up for her and seeing how distraught Lourdes was and how she truly missed her and, just wanted Michaela's approval when it came to the engagement and the marriage, Michaela finally comes to terms, or really goes through a lot of what she's been feeling and opens up in her therapy session. She actually gets a recommendation for reinstatement, but the therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, which one is it? I never remember. But she wants to still see Michaela on a regular basis. So let's hope Michaela still keeps going. Michaela then actually goes to clear the air with Lourdes, and while she's not ready to be BFFs just yet, she lets Lourdes know that she's thankful for everything, all the messages and all of that, and that she gives her blessing for Lourdes and Jared, and that Lourdes says that she's actually been afraid she's been a fraud this whole time, and she's just felt kind of, I guess in a way, guilty. But Michaela says, you know what, girl, you're not a fraud. It's fine. She even says that she was on her way home on that flight from Montego Bay to tell Jared no when it came to the engagement and proposal. But we see here Michaela's actually lying, and she had texted Jared yes, and that's when the service on the plane went out with their phones and the message never sent. So yeah, I wonder how long Michaela's going to be able to hold that little secret in. We also see that Michaela has given Jared back the ring, so yeah, what's going to go on with this threesome? How long will feelings be kept in check? Will Lourdes and Michaela become friends again? It's going to be kind of awkward with Michaela and Jared working together. Other big things, like I said, we got the NSA and the government basically trying to figure out what the heck happened with this plane and why these 20 passengers showed up. They plan on keeping an eye on all 20 of them, and for now, they give strict rules. They don't want them talking to anybody, including the media and their own families. Well, out of 20, one of the bunch has to rebel, right? Yeah, one of those 20 passengers wants her 10 seconds of fame, and she goes on TV and gives this whole interview saying how she thinks this is some kind of government conspiracy. Maybe they fed her something on the plane and all this kind of wacky stuff. Well, when you are told to keep your mouth shut with something so crazy as this, it's probably wise to keep your damn mouth shut. This lady, she didn't get that memo and actually ends up being killed in her home after being followed by a shadow. Now we do see this shadow in another place in the episode. Cal draws a family portrait, and behind the four of them is this shadow, which he says he doesn't know who that is. So is it a coincidence? I think not. Also something weird, on the street when Cal is walking with his mom, a woman stops him, gets down on her knees, kind of starts praying and keeps saying, "He is not here, he is risen." So this kind of makes me think of the whole religious aspect, the God, Jesus thing, being raised from the dead. What exactly is this? And well, that pretty much wraps up episode 2. So what we're left here now is this shadow figure. Is this a person? Is it one of the government agents? Like they said, they were going to keep an eye on these 20 people and they don't want them talking. So are they going to get rid of everybody who's talking? Is this someone else? Is this a person responsible for this whole thing? Or is it even a person? Is it something supernatural? Is it just a damn shadow? Is it Peter Pan's shadow running around? Just what is this? Now, the pilot of the plane did tell Ben and Michaela that, you know, when someone can't figure something out, they always blame the pilot. But could this pilot be to actual blame? Is he even a real pilot? Or is Cal the key? I feel like that's a little obvious. You kind of knew going in with this kid that has cancer. He's miraculously got a cure now after being saved. He's got to have some kind of big deal with this show. Is he the key? Is he some kind of second coming of somebody? You know, with this lady saying he is not here, he is risen. You know, you get this whole like, oh, is this the Antichrist? Or is it, you know, the second coming of Christ? Or is Cal actually gone, but something else has taken over his body? Just what the heck is going on in general with these 20 people having all of these feelings that brought them back to this place? How they're working together in various ways, helping people, just like that Bible verse, like what ties them together and why. Now, I actually don't know if I have any true theories at this point. I spat out a bunch of things. I've been trying to read things on the internet, like were these people meant to be together on this plane, and did they all have some kind of power or something that was activated by this turbulence? I don't know. I truly don't. So that's why you guys are watching this video, hopefully to help me down in the comments. But for now, let's watch the promo for the next episode. See if I get any answers.
The victim was from Flight 828. This is about every person who was on that plane. Any one of us could be next.
I'm at the center of this, just like you. I need to protect my family.
I discovered something in my blood.
It wasn't there before the plane.
This investigation is a matter of national security.
We're being targeted. I need to know who's coming after us.
The side gate was open. There were footprints in the soil.
Okay, yeah, now it seems like next episode things are really starting to shake up. Things are getting higher. People definitely want to know answers. Is this some kind of alternate universe situation? Is it a Lost type thing? Just what is it? Like, I think I gotta watch a few more episodes before I can truly start to see things a little clearer and maybe actually form some reasonable theories. But if you guys have watched the show and have any really good theories, please leave them down in the comments for me. I might read a few in my next recap. I'm genuinely curious what the heck you think is going on in this show. It's one of those that I can't wrap my brain about, and I think as these people in the show are working together, we need to work together to figure this out. What's the deal with Cal? Does he hold the key to this entire thing? What is 828? Just let me know, and then after that, you can click right over here for even more of my videos. I have exclusive interviews and all kinds of good stuff. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of those interviews or my TV recaps, because I'll be here, maybe not every day, but a lot of days talking about random things.